The stars are brightly shining, and will Sunday Night Football be the night of our dear Falcon savior's birth?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So if you do not know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew, aka the iron that sharpens the iron, aka Mr. AKA, and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. Thank each and every one of you as an everydayer of this podcast, and go strong with me each and every day by making this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode, I am joined by none other than our illustrious guest, Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. With a couple of days off coming after the holidays, we're going to talk about how scary is Terry. Big Bijan game in store for us on Sunday. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him when we're talking about Jayden Daniels. How exactly do you do that? But we got to start with the savior of the Atlanta Falcons, none other than Michael Penix Jr. And this is a big test for him coming up on Sunday Night Football. Falcons win with a Bucs loss. They clinch a playoff spot. Falcons win. They still have a chance to, they have a two-way go, right? Potentially winning the division, as well as still having that potential tiebreaker, if need be, over Washington for a 7 seed. So they really set themselves up to save their season after a rough sort of patch over the last couple of games with Kirk Cousins. So Jarvis, I ask, what do we want to see from Michael Penix in his second NFL start?
Before we get into that, have I been gone that long that his name is changed? It's now the savior?
Yeah. Yes. Well, we'll see on Sunday, but basically at this point in time, what else we got going for us at this point?
Okay. But I think this second start is really intriguing to me because, obviously there are a lot of things that we haven't seen as guys that watch his team and has covered every game of this team for ever since Kirk Cousins has been under center. And then you change that out and then put in Michael Penix Jr. We see some things that we haven't seen before, right? Like the little bootlegs, and we start to see rollout type situations, half rollout type situations. We see some interesting throws over the middle, that were very accurate. Guys, I'm catching and running it with ease, and all of those things, right? So we even see some drops that guys normally catch, but coming from Michael Penix and outside the numbers. I like those throws and how they looked and how they looked like darts. They looked like it was kind of shot out of a cannon, going to those sidelines. So, and they were out of harm's way as well, which is even more important. So having all of those things going into that first game, I'm very intrigued to see what Zach Robinson does from a game planning standpoint. Now that film is out there. Now there's some tape that Dan Quinn and company can take a look at, and Joe Witt and all those guys, they can take a look at it and say, okay, all right, here's what they're trying to do now with this quarterback on the center. So I feel like Zach Robinson, the advantage that he had coming into game one is kind of going away a little bit. So I'm interested to see what type of game plan they go with now that Mike Penix got one game under his belt, and there's some tape out there on what they're trying to do with Michael Penix on the center.
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of some of the
the gun. Sorry, my bad.
Yes,
no disrespect.
Yeah. A healthy dose of pistol and shotgun. You mentioned sort of the comparison between Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins and some of the things that they're doing differently. One of the things that a lot of people, not myself, because I was being far too skeptical with sort of how much improved this offense would be under Michael Penix, and so far through one game, it has been very much improved. But I know one of the ways that people talked about the ways that Penix would improve this offense with the improved arm strength and improved mobility was the belief that those things would really help the Falcons in the red zone, where they have really struggled these last couple of weeks, which has contributed to, you know, their struggles under Kirk Cousins. And I'm curious, sort of, we didn't get to really see that translate against the Giants and didn't necessarily need it to. You know, I think the Falcons were 2 for 4 in the red zone. Both of those scoring touchdowns were really when they were able to run it in on the ground. But, you know, I think against this Washington team, you're going to probably need the quarterback to do a little bit more heavy lifting once you get closer to the goal line in terms of the passing game. So I'm curious, how do you feel like Michael Penix will handle those responsibilities? And do you feel like the first game, now going into his second game, you know, you feel confident that he can be able to check that box as well as in terms of being an improvement over Kirk Cousins in the red zone?
I think there are some things that maybe when you think about just like tendencies, right? Like running the football on first down, once you get down into inside the 10, I think there's some opportunities for you to maybe take some play action, like some quick, short play action types of shots. You know, maybe open up that window just a little bit more. You know, even though I feel like, you know, Michael Penix can make all those throws that, you know, because we all know that in the red zone, there are tighter windows. They're going to be tighter windows. It's going to be harder to throw. That's why you see teams try to emphasize the run game when you get down there. So that being that they were able to get in via running the football, like you mentioned, that was very encouraging. So I feel like the more that's out there, you know, the more I feel like you'll be able to take advantage of some short play action and being able to give you a little bit more time to kind of get that cohesion that you need with your guy like Drake, because he's a guy that you can get that fade going on particular downs or maybe on first down and to try to get a shot in there, because we saw a particular situation where they weren't able to connect, where there probably should have been a back shoulder throw, and Michael Penix even pointed that out in the post game right afterwards and saying, hey, yeah, I got to make a better throw in that particular situation. But I feel like with time, that I feel like they'll be able to get that right. But I think in that red zone, the biggest thing for me is continue to be able to run the football like you did against the Giants, and then be able to make plays off of that, you know, with the look or sticking that ball in the gut of Bijan Robinson and quickly pulling it, and maybe find a guy like Kyle Pitts, maybe get him into the end zone. So I think there are so many options that you have when you have a guy who can make those throws in tight windows, and you establish yourself as a team that wants to run the football down in the red zone to get in there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a big believer that, you know, your red zone success often is linked to your running game. That if you
Absolutely.
can run the football effectively, because it's like, you know, let's try to get in the end zone on first and second down as opposed to waiting to third down, where you're in sort of that must throw sort of situation, and that requires the run game to work. So that was something that worked for the Falcons last week. That has not been something that has been consistent this season with the Falcons being able to, you know, goes back to things you've heard me talk about on Locked On Falcons over the entire year, where it's like, when it comes to struggles on short yardage situations, the Falcons have struggled in that. They did not struggle in that against the Giants. So that was a welcome change, and hopefully that will continue against this Washington front. But the big obstacle facing the Falcons in this Washington matchup is the rookie quarterback that is the presumptive favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. That is Jayden Daniels. And I feel like Jarvis's insight into defensive line play will be, very timely to talk about how the Falcons can contain Jayden Daniels, and we'll get into all of that, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So we love the holiday season because it's all about togetherness, and nothing brings people together quite like live events, whether we're talking about sports, comedy, music, and theater, and whatever event is near you. Gametime is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets with their new feature called Gametime Picks. It's going to make getting tickets to see your favorite teams and live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And we love Gametime because of their features in the app, like toggling the all-in prices. That means what you see is what you get because you don't have to worry about hidden fees at checkout. And what you see is what you get is what you have in the panoramic seat view, so you can pick out the perfect spot for whatever live event you're headed to. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So here with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And the big question is, how does this Falcons defense contain Jayden Daniels? And mentioned this on the Atlanta Football Party on Locked On Sports Atlanta, which, Jarvis took a slight, break from, today. But we could have used his insights because we talked about how there's really no game plan for dealing with a quarterback like Jayden Daniels, which is one of the reasons why he's the presumptive favorite to be the offensive rookie of the year, because he can do it through the air. But more importantly, he can do it on the ground, where you can have it perfectly schemed up, perfectly covered on the back end. Everybody's locking down their receiver. Everybody's, that pass rush gets home, and then Jayden Daniels just slips out the backfield, buys time for his receivers, and then flips the ball down the field for Scary Terry McLaurin. Or he just decides, I'm going to tuck it myself, and I can get 20 yards here and there. And you had the perfect play call, and he completely broke it. And so when we look at this matchup, I think the way that you do it, there's no real game plan for it. It's just simply you need guys to go out there and execute and be disciplined in their pass rush lanes, not get too far upfield to allow that, Jayden Daniels those opportunities. So Jarvis, again, this is something you've harped on a number of times here on Locked On Falcons, as well as on Locked On Sports Atlanta over the course of the season. So I give you the floor, break it down for the listeners, what this defensive front needs to do in order to keep Jayden Daniels contained in the pocket and hopefully get him on the ground when he's in the pocket.
I thought Arna Ebiketie put it perfectly when he was trying to explain what happened on the pick 6 by Matthew Judon. He was saying, yeah, man, I don't know what was going on. I was just trying to retrace my steps and get to the quarterback. What retrace your steps meaning when I'm screaming out, via Twitter saying, hey, man, don't run past the quarterback. What you do is, instead of running past the quarterback when you're trying to rush outside, you stop where you are, and then you trying to essentially you go back where you came from, because more than likely the quarterback's trying to is going to step up in the pocket, and because there's coverage and they don't like what they're necessarily seeing at the particular moment. They're trying to extend the play, and that's what Jayden Daniels is amazing at, right? Because when you have the athletic ability and with your legs to be able to escape the pocket or step up in the pocket and have that pocket mobility and try to find and look downfield, and you have to be on guard because he could take off and run with last game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Shoot, the man had 9 carries for 81 yards. He almost averaged the first down, when rushing the football. And that is what is dangerous. That can kill a defense. That can extend a drive that was supposed to be a 3 and out. And that can have those defensive linemen standing there with their hands on their hips because they tried to trace Jayden Daniels down, and he got a first down, and then he took a shot downfield on the next play. And now they're in the red zone working with 3 downs to get into the end zone when it should have been, hey, a 3 and out or whatever. So I think that there are so many possibilities when a guy like this get outside of the pocket. That's why he's up for the offensive rookie of the year, because it's so hard to guard, like you mentioned. It's so hard to game plan for, hey, what is he going to do when we got everyone covered on 3rd and long and he rolls out of the pocket, does a dipsy do, and throws the ball down the field? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't game plan for that. So how you do that, though, you remain disciplined. If you don't run, you never run past Jayden Daniels. Never. You stop where you are and you retrace your steps, because more than likely that young man is trying to either get out of the pocket, or he's trying to step up in that bad boy to find a window to be able to throw the football down the field, or he's going to try to take off and run for the first down.
Yeah. I think, a testament to how that strategy can work is you go 2 weeks ago when the Commanders only scored 20 points against the Saints. big part of that was the Saints sacked Jayden Daniels 8 times, and a number of those sacks were times where guys were able to chase him down when he would be able to extend outside the pocket and get a couple of those sacks. We've seen the Falcons do that. They did that successfully against Justin Herbert a couple of weeks ago, coming out of their bye week, where they had 5 sacks in that game, and a lot of those came when Herbert was trying to step up and buy time and extend. And so with the sort of resurrection, talking about saviors and whatnot this week, and celebrating birthdays and whatnot, with the resurrection of the Falcons pass rush these last couple of weeks, it does make you feel a lot better about the Falcons' ability to contain a player like Jayden Daniels. We've talked all year long about their struggles against these sort of more mobile quarterbacks. And we even brought it up, like, Drew Lock can do some things against you, with his legs, and the Falcons were able to mostly keep it contained. I think the one time where the Falcons didn't do a great job containing his mobility and play extension abilities was on, I think, the touchdown pass where he was able to buy some time and a receiver was able to break open in the end zone. But you got one of that with Drew Lock. You're going to get like 40 of those plays potentially with Jayden Daniels. So that is going to be the challenge, I think, for this Falcons team. But any other thoughts, Jarvis, you have on ways that the Falcons can keep Jayden Daniels in check? I know another thing we talk about the play extension with his legs. And, I've heard a lot about, Michael Penix is having the best deep ball in this draft class. My personal opinion was Jayden Daniels had actually the best deep ball in this draft class. And I've seen that him hit a number of those throws. So we've seen this Falcons defense a couple of weeks ago have some struggle defending the deep ball. And so hopefully that is another area where I think the Falcons need to, be a little bit more disciplined on the back end, where some of those guys where, he's going to get a one-on-one on the outside against some of these guys, and he can just drop that thing in the bucket. But any other thoughts on Jayden Daniels in terms of containing him in this matchup?
I think, you can contain him by not giving him a two-way go, meaning, hey, don't let them boys get out there and start having success running the football with him turning around, handing it off. Make him, beat you essentially, right? Make him have to be able to beat the run game and the passing game. Like, put the load on him to be able to do that. And I feel like they can, if they get him in a situation where they aren't able to run the football, I feel like they'll be in pretty good shape. And because, like, man, I talked about this on Locked On Sports Atlanta a lot. Like when that defensive coordinator is in 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 3, man, it is going to be hard to get off the field, man. You have to put those guys behind the sticks and force that offensive coordinator to go to a different section of his play sheet. That play sheet on 2nd and 15 is not that many plays for that, right? But 2nd and 6 and 2nd and 5, oh my gosh, he has a worldly of opportunities to be able to get success and be able to get that first down and keep those chains moving. So I think that's one thing, and I think the second thing is, I feel like this is one of those games where Jesse Bates needs to make him look like a rookie quarterback. Because we understand the film study that he brings and what he does. And I think you saw an example of that against Drew Lock, right? And the way he was baiting him into making that throw. And I think that one of the things that, Jesse brings to the table, I'm sorry, Jordan, it's been a while. Sorry, one thing that Jordan does is, like, he makes guys look like they shouldn't be on the field. And I think that being able to turn him over, and we know Jayden Daniels can turn it over. He did it a lot against Philly. So, it's just unfortunate that they didn't have their starting quarterback. I feel like that probably would have been a different result if that was the case, because we understand what, Jalen Hurts and Kenny Pickett, like, there's a reason why Kenny Pickett was the backup quarterback for that team. And I know that's your guy, right?
I love me some Kenny Pickett, but there were some Kenny Pickett moments in that game where, like, yeah, Kenny, this is why you're backup. This is why you're no longer why you're a starter at this point in the season.
Absolutely. So we understand what that does to a football team when you lose your starting quarterback, and and you're used to things being a certain way, and then a guy comes in and just absolutely craps the bed from time to time. So I feel like Jordan is one of those guys I'm tapping to say, hey man, this is your game. This is your game. Like, 'cause this is huge, man. Like you brought up earlier, you're talking about a chance to, solidify yourself to finish with the same record as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because if y'all went out, if Tampa wins out and the Falcons went out, shoot, Falcons got that bad boy. They got the South. They figured out a way to run the South in their own Falcon-y type way. So, and then you're putting yourself in a situation to, if something crazy were to happen against the Panthers, you got the tiebreaker against the Commanders if you end up with the same record as them. So I think that these are the type of games that you're going to need plays from your guys, right? Like, I need to see something from Jordan. Like what he did last week was beautiful. Man, I need to see it again, though. and I think that, him being the leader on the back end of this defense and the way guys like D'Arford has been playing, I love what he brings to the table. He's been so close to an interception, man. I think this is one of those games where he can finally probably get him one, because Jayden Daniels isn't immune to it, because he's just coming off of that type of game, like I mentioned. So I feel like this is one or two ways. One of those two things needs to happen in order for the Falcons to get the win. They need to figure out the way to make those guys one-dimensional, and they need to get his offense extra possession so Michael Penix can be at ease.
There you go. Well, speaking of guys that, the Falcons have that need to step up, two of those guys, I think, are A.J. Terrell and Bijan Robinson, with A.J. Terrell having the assignment of taking away Jayden Daniels' top weapon and Terry, a.k.a. Scary Terry McLaurin. And sort of, if Penix's top weapon this week will be potentially Bijan Robinson. We'll break all that down, guys, as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So time is a precious commodity, and sometimes, I find myself disappointed with how much time I feel like I'm wasting scrolling mindlessly on my phone. I often think I could spend that time more wisely by looking at ways to improve myself, and thankfully our sponsor, Hillsdale College, has an offer of more than 40 free. That's right, free online courses on history, politics, economics, philosophy, chemistry, and mathematics that can help me improve myself. And all their courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever you want, however you want. So if you want to go deeper with the readings and quizzes and discussions, or just sit back and enjoy the lectures, and who knows, you start with these free online courses, and then all of a sudden you working your way all the way to a whole degree over at Hillsdale College. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. So, Jarvis, one of the things we talked about heading into this Giants matchup, especially coming off of, the heels of the Vikings game where the secondary kind of got exposed. They had a nice rebound game against the Raiders, sort of keeping Brock Bowers contained in that one. And so one of the things we thought we would see more of in this Giants matchup was A.J. Terrell shadowing Malik Neighbors. Now, he did shadow him at times in that game, but it was mostly in sort of critical downs in situations, red zone stuff, third down stuff, those types of situations, as opposed to just every single snap. And now, to the Falcons secondary's credit, Mike Hughes and Clark Phillips and D'Arford, all those guys held up reasonably well against Malik Neighbors. But this week, you have a guy by the name of Scary Terry McLaurin, who, I talked about earlier this week on Locked On Falcons. Looking back at, charting the defense the last couple of years, AJ's matched up with Terry pretty successfully in 21 and 22, but had a lot of problems with him in 2023 last season. But when you look at Jayden Daniels' plethora of weapons, you're like, this is the one guy that clearly can hurt you. So why not put your $20 million cornerback on him? And it will be easier, I think, for the Falcons to use that strategy, because Washington doesn't necessarily move McLaurin around as much as the Giants did with Malik Neighbors, where he's all over the place. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that idea of this is a game where AJ can sort of, talk about earning the contract or whatever, but I know you've seen it all, Jarvis. Like, anytime AJ gets beat, gives up a catch, it's like, oh, they wasted all their money, all that stuff. But what are some of the things that you could see from AJ that this week against Terry McLaurin?
Man, here's the thing, man. I'm if Cliff Kingsbury doesn't want to get creative And we know Cliff Kingsbury has the ability not to get creative, right? As a play caller and move Terry McLaurin around, put him in those weird little motions that we saw Malik Neighbors do last week, because it's hard for you to kind of have shadow that, right? So we like kind of let, hey, we're going to line you up on this side, AJ, and they want to come out and do all that crap. We're just gonna go with what we go with. So, and I think that you understand that with the type of personnel and obviously different formations that they come out in, they'll be able to match up. But I think overall, AJ should be matched up with Terry when it makes sense, right? So, there is and that's the funny thing that I found with AJ Terrell and his career just overall, right? Because he wasn't the coveted guy in coming out in the draft, right? Like everybody was pointing to how he just got toasted, by Jamar Chase of all people, right? Okay, yeah, that's going to happen to people. You're going to get beat.
It's kind of good. I don't know if people got that.
He's really good. Yeah. He's really good, really, really good. So, as long as he's not going up against Jamar Chase, he's a really freaking good cornerback. So if we're just going to go there with the conversation, I'm totally fine with that, right? So I think that, but another thing that I always found kind of weird when it comes to AJ Terrell is how people, like you mentioned, he gets somebody catches the ball on him, blah, 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 blah. But when guys like Justin Jefferson, doesn't have that success when 24 is on him, it's crickets. No one wants to say anything. They don't mention it. And that's kind of how it works with cornerbacks, right? For the most part, unless you're like Prime and you're like, hey man, y'all gonna give me my credit because I'm the best. I'm the man, right? I'm the GOAT at this thing. So, and I don't care who says anything against that. So, but I think overall, yeah, this is the game where, hey, you put AJ Terrell on Terry when it makes sense, and then you just kind of go from there. And like I mentioned, like guys like D. Alford and Mike Hughes, those guys been playing pretty solid, man. Mike Hughes plays solid, man. You got to give him credit. When the man's been out there, but a lot of people were talking about trying to figure out ways to replace him. So they need to get a guy opposite. And I was one of them. Hey, man, stop spinning the wheel on guys to play opposite AJ Terrell. I was making all the noise and everything. Dude has had a pretty good doggone season. Raheem Morris came and said, hey, man, I like what Mike Hughes brings to the table. He's proved that by, hey, having that man in there, right? I know Jimmy Lake's the defensive coordinator, but we understand what Raheem Morris has done this year post-bye, and saying, hey, these are some of the things that we need to be doing going forward. And I think that all those guys deserve all the credit. And I wouldn't be too shocked if we see some of those guys get some reps against Terry and do pretty solid against him as well. But I think overall, when it makes sense, AJ Terrell should be matched up with him.
Yeah, we'll see how that matchup goes. But I think for the Falcons, I think a very potential potent weapon could be Bijan Robinson. We know what Bijan does on the ground, but the last couple of weeks, we haven't really gotten to see a lot of him in the passing game. And I look at these Commanders linebackers and Frankie Louvu. I look at Bobby Wagner, two excellent players that play the run really well, that are, can bring some juice as a pass rushers. But I think, there's a third phase that you want the linebackers to do often, and that's coverage.
We understand that, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's where I feel like those guys give up a little bit. We saw Bijan go, do some things to Frankie Louvu that I'm sure he remembers from his days in Carolina last year. Mm-hmm. And Bobby Wagner may wind up being a Hall of Famer, but he's not the same player that he was when he was playing at that Hall of Fame level. And, because Bijan is so valuable to this team in pass protection, I think that's a part of the reason why, while he's been involved in the passing game, oftentimes his involvement is mostly sort of checkdowns, where it's like he has to stay in the protect, or he has to sort of chip and then release as a checkdown, rather than getting the sort of one-on-ones on like the wheel routes and the angle routes and all the various things where we can get him in be that more explosive playmaker where he can make guys like Louvu and Wagner miss an open field. So I'll be curious to see if Zach Robinson can dial up some ways just to sprinkle a couple in there, in addition to all the other valuable things that Bijan does this week, because I think that can be a real big difference maker in this particular matchup. What say you, Jarvis?
I think you're spot on. And here's the thing. That's another one of the things that you kind of put out there. I like what you said. Sprinkle it in there, because here's the thing. As you continue to have 9 in the pistol, it's so weird to say not say under center because barely up under that mug. But the more you put 9 out there, the more different type of play calling you have out there. We've been able to pinpoint that, in the Giants game, and like I said, being very intrigued as to what he sprinkles in there as they continue to kind of evolve this offense, as making a push for the playoffs. So I feel Bijan Robinson is that one of those sprinklings. Get some magic dust out there, get the magic beans and throw them bad boys out there and get the ball to 7, and when you are intentionally trying to get it to him in the passing game. And I think getting him matched up with guys like Bobby Wagner and Lovu, all that makes all the sense in the world, because that's what you're supposed to do as an offensive coordinator. Find the weakness. Where's the weakness? If it's the linebacker core, hey, let's get these guys matched up 1-on-1 with 7. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think the best time to do that is when you have 25 in there too. When you have Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson there at the same time, what are they going to do? Oh my gosh. Like, here, motion them into the slot. Get them to line up, see what coverage they're in. If they're in man, you know where you're going, right? If they're in zone, oh my gosh, this might be an opportunity for you to take a shot downfield. So I think this new quarterback situation, I feel it affords them to kind of play around with a lot of things that we haven't necessarily seen that much. With Kirk Cousins was the starting quarterback, I feel like Zach has the potential to kind of, hey man, continue to show us that, hey, that you belong as a play caller in this league.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, playing from the pistol does afford you to do some interesting things,
Sure.
With some misdirection in the backfield, especially if you have 2 running backs back there and, where defense is like, okay, is Penix going to pull it? Is he going to hand the ball off? Or are they going to do a play fake? All those different things. So it'll be definitely interesting to see what new wrinkles, if any, Zach Robinson adds into this game plan. And we'll see if this Falcons offense can sort of keep pace with the Washington offense, which is one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL, as well as if this Falcons defense can, keep it contained to allow their offense to be able to, do the thing that you need to do in order to win a game, which is outscore the other team. So we'll see what's what. Any sort of parting shots, Jarvis, for the listeners before we duck out of here?
Man, look, man, here's the thing. Like, Matthew Judon, I appreciate you, bro. Like, you seem like you're happy now, man. I'm even seeing you in the team videos. I ain't really seeing the team videos before, man. You in there naming out all of your favorite Christmas movies, man. I feel like you're in a good space mentally. Make the decision hard for the Falcons on whether or not they're gonna bring you back. Make it hard. I would love to see, you make it hard for them. You know what I'm saying? Pause. Gosh, my goodness. Anyway. But yeah, Judon, make sure you do what you do, man. Like, I'm glad we didn't record this on Christmas. But yeah, that's where my head is, man. Like, I want to see what Judon can continue to bring to the table as a Falcons. Continue to make this playoff push, man, because like they're gonna need whether it be strip sack, fumble, interception, or anything like that. They're gonna need help from this defense, and the guys got off to a hell of a start last week against the Giants.
Yep. I agree with you. All hands on deck for not only the Falcons offense, Falcons defense. Matthew Judon, let's see what you can do. Get a couple of those cleanup sacks that you're famous for. Arnold Ebiketie flushes.
Let's
let's get a couple of cleanup sacks. So we'll see what's what. What you
cleanup man.
There you go. So that's it, guys. We will be back on Sunday on Locked On Sports Atlanta as well as Locked On Falcons to give you that reaction, or we'll probably be back technically Monday morning because it's a primetime game. But, we will be back to give you the recap of this matchup and whether or not Michael Penix successfully saved the Falcons season, or, we got to wait another week to week 18 or whatever, winning you're in type of situation. We'll break it all down for you come Sunday evening / Monday morning here on Locked On Falcons as well as Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check it out. Get geared up for the rest of the weekend's action on Locked On NFL, 2 shows daily. It's going to get the breakdown of the other 15 matchups this weekend, or I guess we've had some. It doesn't matter. Anyway, 12 matchups. I don't know the math, guys. 13, whatever the number
Playing on
is.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays,
Yeah, you know,
all
the
everything,
whole
man.
week threw me off. Just like,
It was-
what is Wednesday football? What is this? I don't know what this is. Yeah. So Locked On NFL is going to have you covered, guys. That's basically what I'm getting at. To get you back on track for this weekend. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.